All right, now we're here after the reaction.
Here's what I really think.
Oh,
I hated it. No, I'm kidding. No, that was great. I think like it was interesting that it set up so much in the beginning regarding their relationship. I think I was really interested in that stuff, and I think it's just because like I think it's a very common dynamic that happens where like one person in the relationship has more emotional baggage than the other one, and you know, Christian's in a place where if he's not emotionally equipped to handle it, you know, that's perfectly reasonable. But I think the fact that he like strung her along and had no interest in really taking care of her and helping her made him a really shitty boyfriend.
100%.
Did he deserve to burn alive? That's subjective. But
I think the way Ari Aster describes this movie is a fairy tale, you know, and also like taking what it's like to go through a breakup and exploding it
into a whole different
fantasy, right? So that's how he looks at it. He's like, I look at Danny's story as a fairy tale. Like, that's why when you mentioned Cinderella, I got so excited. I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they're doing here. And then you mentioned Yellow Brick Road earlier in the reaction, and I was like, oh, you're getting it. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
It is very interesting, the constant use of like nature. Obviously, it's incredibly obvious. All the use of the flowers. Yeah. And then her by the end just being completely covered in flowers. And I mentioned it during the reaction, but it is interesting to me, this kind of recurring element of her, like, you know, when she takes the psychedelic stuff, how it goes through her feet. You know? Yeah. And it happens again later through her hands, right? Or did I get it the opposite?
No.
It goes through her hands. And then,
first it happens through her hands, then it goes through her feet. Like, in that order, you know?
Yeah. Like, point is, I guess it's interesting that at the core of it, it is about someone moving on from a bad relationship to finding a sense of belonging and a sense of being heard and respected in a way that she's been needing, because after going through such a tremendous loss like that.
Yeah. And it's funny that Ari Aster, he said he wrote this movie after a breakup. Which is just like, I always think about what that girl must feel like.
I know, right? Jesus.
And well, apparently it's also interesting that like he had Midsommar's script written before he shot Hereditary. And after Hereditary, Midsommar got greenlit pretty quickly. So while he was promoting Hereditary, he was prepping Midsommar. So like these movies got shot back to back.
Yeah, imagine just getting right to it after that.
Yeah, he said it was extremely exhausting, and that's why he took a long break before he got to something as insane as Beau is Afraid. Yeah, which I know you and I have mixed feelings on. I personally really liked when I liked it when I watched it. I know you're kind of mixed on it, but yeah. It is interesting. Like off camera, I was telling you, I was just like, yeah, I'm excited for you to see this because I feel like this is a marriage of tones between Hereditary and Midsommar. Hereditary and Beau is Afraid. Sure. Because I do think it's Midsommar in a fucked up way is kind of funny as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of awkward humor in there because of how uncomfortable their chemistry is. Like I said earlier, like this is the worst anti-chemistry I've ever seen.
100%.
Reaction because there's so little love and affection between the couple, and obviously the friends are all douchebags and they don't like her. Yeah, you know? And that sucks. Like you feel for her immediately that she goes through something like that, and it's like
the worst thing you could go through as a human. Like one of the worst things you could go through. I do like how this movie sets it up. I was like, oh my god, that is the worst thing that could ever happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I like how it's set up as this like, oh, I may be worrying too much. I might be worrying too much, and like. He's saying the same thing. I was like, your sister, you know how she is. She always... And, like, that all could be true. Yeah. But then the fact that her, like, fears come true and that's what happens...
It's worse than she thinks.
It's worse than she could have ever imagined. Yeah. I always, like, thought that the way she cried was very haunting.
Yeah, yeah. I know. And that's how they fucking kickstart the movie. It zooms through the window and then the credits start.
It gets right to it. Yeah. It gets right... Like, it doesn't mess around in what kind of story it's trying to tell.
Yeah. And I'm also surprised how, like, breezy the story was, too. Like, it's been, the movie's about 2.5 hours, but we surprisingly got through it okay. Some of these reactions, because...
We have to keep our energies up. We have to, like, we have to kind of... we're doing a reaction video, so we do have to be, like, on. Yeah. And so we can get exhausted.
Yeah, but this one I feel surprisingly good. Like, I feel surprisingly, like,
I think like I said in the reaction, like you said, too, it has a very unique pace to it, where you're never, like, you're never trudging along even though you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you're engaged enough where you don't feel lost, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, like, did you ever feel lost when you were watching this?
No, I mean, obviously, like, I didn't. You're not supposed to know everything that's going on, obviously, in this movie, because it's super weird and their traditions are very out there, and you don't really know what to expect next. But I think I was on the same page that the movie wanted me to be on. Yeah. You know? Like, I was just as confused as the characters were.
I think, and I might be butchering it, but I think Vince Gilligan, you know, showrunner, creator of Breaking Bad, always says, like, in his writing room, the thing that they always tried to, like, preach was, like, confusion is bad, mystery is good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fine distinction to make.
Which is, it's okay to, like, for the audience to not immediately know everything that's going on, but there should be a level of mystery to it, to where they want to know. Confusion means they don't know what's going on, and they also don't care because it feels, like, irritating and annoying.
Yeah, where it feels more like it's hurting your brain a little bit, but not in a fun way.
Exactly. It takes a lot of confidence from a filmmaker to pull that kind of thing off. Not
Totally.
Everyone can as well. I think Nope does that really well, funny enough.
Yeah, that's a cool, like, kind of mystery box movie.
100%.
Yeah, there's some movies that I think, like, enhance themselves on a second watch. This is a movie I think would heavily benefit from a second watch, like Hereditary.
I was going to ask you, too, and I obviously, you know, like, I know you probably don't have this immediate opinion right away, but I remember in lockdown was when I was like, hey, we should watch Hereditary. And you had never seen it. I had seen that movie in theaters. We'll talk more about it in our official Hereditary podcast, obviously. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, like, right after we finished Hereditary, there was something that happened that I feel like rarely ever happens with you, which is you just turned around and told me, you're like, that's, I think, one of my favorite movies. Where I'm like, you're a person that sits with movies. Like, you don't, like, even when you and I walk out of a theater, you're not one to immediately have takes. Yeah. You like to sit, that's your natural state. So I want to ask, like, what was Midsommar like for you? Is it like I'm gonna have to watch this again, or?
Well, I kind of both. I would love to watch this again, but I did really like this movie. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it does a great job of what also Ari Aster's really good at, is having an emotional core underneath it. And it didn't feel too on the nose, obviously. I mean, it was obvious, but it didn't feel like it was spoon-feeding it to me.
Yeah, and I do think, like, when you talk about the emotional core aspect to it, I feel like I felt more of that in Hereditary, but that might just be for me. I've never been in a relationship, so I understand the dynamics, obviously, but, like, I've never been in a relationship. And so maybe that's why, but I think Hereditary connected with me more emotionally. And that's also not to say I have a mom like that or a family like that in Hereditary, to be clear. But
well, the basic core of what loss is and how it tears families apart.
100%.
Of what Hereditary deals with.
100%.
But you saw the emotional core in this movie. Just because you didn't connect to it, you still understood it, Yeah,
that's the point. Clear, that's the point I'm trying to make. I understand it, and obviously it's there, and actually it is effective still. Yeah. But it just doesn't resonate with me as much as Hereditary does.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I get that. I think, like, for me, it was just interesting seeing, like, some of those really uncomfortable, like, the beginning just really got my blood boiling when she was just saying it's weird that you didn't tell me you were going to Sweden, and how he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know, I just, where he's like, I decided today, and after the tickets were already bought, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, and then later, he's like, well, I apologized. And I'm like, you said...
It's never going to work.
And it's like what you said. You said sorry with a question mark. Yeah. And it's what she said. She was like, it's like saying too bad. You know what I mean? But it's, that conversation is so, like, real. It just, again, like I said, it felt like I'm intruding on it felt like I was intruding in a couple's, like, conversation or argument. Sure. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I shouldn't be listening to this.
Yeah, they should have their privacy.
Which is very effective. I don't think, like many people are able to pull that off, where it feels so real in that way.
Yeah, what's the name of the actor that played as the horny dude? Will Poulter?
Will Poulter.
Will Poulter?
Yeah, how do we not remember that?
I forgot his name until literally just now.
He has... Oh, I can't spoil it for you, but in a TV show that I really like, he has a cameo in. For those who know, it came out this year. Okay. And he played a role for the first time that wasn't like a villain or asshole role. Okay, and I was like, oh yeah, he's ready. So I have to be clear when I say, like, in the video, I'm like, he has a face that looks like an asshole. There's no insult towards him. It's more of just like he plays that very well.
He's perfectly cast for it.
You just see him and you're just like, oh god.
First thing I saw him in, I think, was We're the Millers. Funny enough. And he was kind of funny in that movie.
Oh my god, yeah. Wow, I forgot about him being one of those. I mean, the first thing I think of is that fucking kiss scene between him and the daughter, like Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, oh yeah, Emma Watson, Jennifer Aniston.
Emma Watson?
Emma Watson. Emma Roberts? Emma Roberts.
Roberts.
Yeah.
I was like, did I watch that movie? But yeah, this was my second watch, and it was like it was interesting because like I thought like I didn't remember the tiny details at all.
Yeah,
I remembered the bear, I remembered the sex scene, I remembered like some of the trip sequences, but all the tiny things and those tiny interactions I forgot.
That's it. Yeah, I get that way too. You know that. I'm sure you guys know that too, watching. But I will say this real quick. I'm surprised how little I forgot his name, the deformed person.
Yeah.
I forgot, like, I didn't really think I didn't anticipate how little they would be involved in the story, you know?
I'm also curious, like, if the extent... I know there's an Ari Aster director's cut of this, where that's like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there's more of that in there.
Maybe, yeah.
Also, I'm just curious, what did they include in that what's in that director's cut?
What else is in there? What else do we need to see?
I know. Because this movie's structure is so breezy and open, I can see that Ari Aster shot a lot of movie and had to cut it down. This movie does seem like a movie where you shoot so many extra scenes, you know?
Yeah, you got a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's also interesting the sequence with the mask, you know, when they killed him with the sledgehammer.
When Mark killed Josh.
It was Mark that killed him?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Will
when they
Poulter,
killed Josh. Yeah. No, it wasn't literally him. It was someone wearing his face.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, why would he kill him? Yeah.
My bad. Yeah.
But that's what I was going to get at, though, is when he's wearing his face. I'm wondering, this is part of me that's like, why did they have to do that? But they have weird traditions, so who the hell knows? You know, it's probably they could probably explain
part of it, like, there's things like that in this movie that just remind me of The Shining, of like remember The Shining, the guy in the bear suit?
Of course, yeah.
We're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And still to this day, I'm like, what the fuck? And you could read theories online. 100%.
There's a ton of different...
Shining has a bit too many theories.
Yeah.
But that's honestly the magic of The Shining. Is you can watch it still today and get something new from it. And I feel like that's kind of what Midsommar is.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, things like that will happen and you're just like, the first time? And then maybe a second time you maybe, like, start putting things together in your mind.
Lighthouse does that really well, too.
Yeah, like, 100%. Also, it's kind of great that Robert Eggers and Ari Aster are like best friends. Maybe not best friends, but they're very close friends.
Yeah, that is cool to know.
Like they did a podcast together on A20. A24 has their own podcast where they have pinned like A24 filmmakers with each other and they talk to each other. Robert Eggers and Ari Aster did one together, and it was just the cool. Like I'm like, oh, these are not only the smartest guys, but they just seem like the coolest guys to hang out with. I'm like, these guys know so much about movies. They've probably seen more than I will ever in my life.
Sure, yeah.
They're talking about like they're doing deep cuts on like Norwegian movies that I don't know about. You know what I mean?
That's sick, yeah.
But it's like their brain works everywhere. They'll talk about Spielberg and that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of sick to see these two like kind of visionaries of our generation like build up together.
Yeah.
Like Hereditary and The Witch came out very close to each other. And then Midsommar and Lighthouse came close to each other.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even factor that in.
Northman and Beau is Afraid came out the same year.
Yeah, that is funny. So they're just sort of, how's your movie going? It's good. How's your movie going?
Good. We're both getting weirder.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I don't know. It's like really cool to see these filmmakers just be like, oh, these are going to be like our Paul Thomas Andersons of the future.
Totally.
You know, and we're seeing Ari Aster like turn into that. It's really sick.
Yeah, for sure.
Something interesting about Ari Aster's small but very like important filmography is that I feel like all his movies have like a singular character that's extremely vulnerable and and fragile, go through some sort of arc that is the strangest thing you've ever seen, that is like you can't understand it, but it is like even with Hereditary, spoilers, but Hereditary, Alex Wolff's character becoming Payman.
Yeah.
Right? And then this one, Danny, like finding herself with this community. I just think that's an interesting like thing he's trying to do.
Yeah, it seems like Ari Aster is very attracted to people with emotional baggage, you know, in some sort of capacity and how they deal with it. and how they,
like pretty heavy emotional baggage.
Totally.
Too.
Well, and Hereditary has a very traditional horror way of looking at it. The way the grief tore this family apart, and the way, the way we carry we'll talk more in depth about it when you get to the Hereditary podcast. Hereditary podcast should be out at the time of this coming out, but we haven't recorded it yet, so
it's a little weird.
The chronology is confusing for you guys. Don't mind us, but
yeah, Hereditary tells its story in a very traditional horror way of how grief affects his family.
Yeah, and then this one's more of like almost like a weird, fucked up, empowering story for Danny, where it's like, kind of like what we've been saying is the idea of her finding a sense of belonging and being, treated with respect and being seen and finding community, and is willing to look past their weird, fucked up traditions because she's being seen and accepted, and that's more important than anything to her.
Yeah, which is like a deep human need to be seen, to be seen and cared for and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it is true. Like it is. That's what was entertaining about watching you react to this movie. Is like you from the beginning was like, holy shit, this community, this is fucked up, right? In the back of my head, knowing where this movie lands up, I was just thinking, this is it's a dark place that Danny's in, but this is the best she has right now. Like it's like she's actually getting she's building a community for herself. And she doesn't have that at all in her real life. Her real life sucks compared to this.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is very sad, but it's like
it's very real. It's very honest that sort of thing happened. But yeah, I watched a video on how people get taken into cults, and it is interesting though, because like one of the core points that it tried to make was essentially that thinking that you're better than people who get tricked into joining cults kind of believe it's like a false belief. It's like part of accepting that people can get tricked into cults is knowing that you can be susceptible too.
That you're just as susceptible.
Yeah, like you might have to be in a specific position. Like maybe you're dead broke, maybe you lost people close to you, maybe you're in a position, whatever it is. I looked up on YouTube Heaven's Gate. Like there's all sorts of little cults that happen where people with really strong charisma can like they did on the movie, where they can talk to you in a way where they're like, hey, you know what, those people out there, they don't understand you. The way we do things, we're a little different than others, but that's the way it is here, and you just got to go with it.
It's like hitting that exact human need, which is wanting to feel heard. Mm-hmm. I think that's what this movie's getting at, which is just like everyone wants what Danny's lacking, which is just empathy and feeling heard and seen.
And feeling like you have a purpose, too. They basically tell you like, hey, you're going to be part of something greater than yourself. You know what I mean?
And because Danny also is taking a break from school. Mm-hmm. Who knows where her career or anything was going?
Yeah. It seems like she's in a position where, as messed up as it sounds, where no one would miss her if she disappeared.
Yeah.
It's sad, but that's probably what happens.
I mean, she has that one friend that she called on the phone, right?
I think so.
In the beginning of the movie. But that friend never shows up. Friend. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was just I don't know. They just did that for the beginning. But it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. I mean, I'm afraid that if we talk more, we're going to step on our Hereditary podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for watching our After the Reaction, and thank you so much for checking out this channel.
Yeah, welcome aboard. Stay if you like. Look at our other stuff.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for our patrons for supporting this channel. And as always, stay nice, folks.